Today's hearing focuses on the very real threat of Mexican drug cartels and the lengths that law enforcement goes to defend Americans. In the last few months, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have hurled accusations at law enforcement, the Trump administration, and even Republicans on this committee. They've alleged an assault on the Constitution, national security crisis, corrupt bargaining, and a Judiciary Committee asleep at the wheel. That's a quote for them. Dare they pause in their breathless accusations? The American public might remember life under Democratic leadership. They converted law enforcement into overlords of speech with their Disinformation Governance Board. A mere 3 years ago, they colluded with social media companies to quietly remove online criticisms of their policies written by their constituents. No longer able to delete Republican words, today's Democrat activists storm detention centers, shove law enforcement, and disregard police orders to scream their opinions. They defame their dissenters with allegations of quote-unquote authoritarianism. Congress didn't make this nation's laws subject to the whims of purported righteous indignation. Bruised egos don't override the First Amendment. Passionate protests don't justify laying hands on law enforcement. And bleeding hearts don't erase immigration laws critical to our national security. My colleagues wring their hands over the use of federal agents in immigration operations. They fret about the diversion of resources from cartel investigations. Need they be reminded then that under their leadership, agents were redirected from law enforcement missions to make sandwiches for illegal migrants? It was Democrats who threw open our southern border by issuing notices to report because they were overwhelmed with illegal entering migrants and couldn't issue notices to appear as required by law. These were foolish policies that paroled over 6,000 individuals on the FBI terrorist screening center watch list or with criminal records into the United States and lost track of over 2 million known gotaways. Overwhelmed by the immigration crisis they created, they released vulnerable migrant children to unvetted sponsors at unverified addresses. At the same time, they threatened law-abiding citizens with warrantless home inspections for daring to transact a single lawful gun sale. They railed against the Second Amendment as they systematically dismantled Project Thor, a key program designed to identify and prosecute cartel networks smuggling guns into Mexico. They directed overzealous inspections intended to fly-spec paperwork for errors in lawful gun transactions, all while they handed over children to sponsors, preventing overtly fraudulent documentation. Then they systematically ignored over 65,000 worrisome reports about the status of unaccompanied alien children, over 7,000 of which were alleged human trafficking. Predictably, it was under their leadership that FBI Director Wray saw, quote, unquote, blinking lights everywhere. I've heard my Democratic colleagues hold up some of these criminals as shining examples of the American dream. They've mobilized their powerful platforms in defense of an alleged MS-13 gang member accused of staggering acts of violence against women and children, including abuse, murder, and solicitation of child pornography. The witnesses who sit before us today, and I thank you for being here, represent the men and women who defend America from these criminals. These are folks who enforce the law at great personal cost. As of late, they've been pelted with rocks, assaulted with homemade explosives, and defamed and doxxed by the far left. And yet they continue to hold the line against one of the greatest national security threats to America, the Mexican drug cartels. So we've had, in the last 4 years, the borders thrown open to criminals who would like nothing more than to see these men and women killed and then lost track of who entered. Democrat Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas and Director Wray refused to appear for their annual congressional report on threats to the homeland. So let's not forget who, quote, unquote, fell asleep at the wheel. Before I turn to Ranking Member Durbin, I'd like to play a 2-minute video that shows the sacrifices law enforcement makes to protect us from the cartels. Will you show the video, please?
American drug agent and his pilot were brutally beaten before they were killed.
In 1985, prosecutors say Caro Quintero arranged the kidnapping, torture, and killing of DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena. The aging drug kingpin was known as the narco of narcos. Federal prosecutors called him one of the most notorious drug lords of the modern era. Caro Quintero was among 29 cartel leaders Mexico handed over to the United States under pressure from the Trump administration. 40 years later, dozens of DEA agents looked on as Caro Quintero was brought into court in Camarena's handcuffs.
Under President Trump and Attorney General Bondi's leadership, and since January 20th of this year, ATF has prevented nearly 9,700 firearms from falling into the hands of dangerous criminals or terrorists. Over the past 4 years, cartels have infiltrated the United States through the southern border and are operating within our communities.
The DEA has said that the cartels are present in all 50 states here in the U.S.
Shootouts in upscale neighborhoods, trucks set on fire out on the highway, armed men dragging people out of their cars, and no one can stop them.
These organizations are ruthless. The way they operate is through money, and they have different shields and different ways of cloaking that money through different organizations that they own. I mean, these are multinational criminal entities that own tequila companies, media companies, popular artists. These guys are everywhere.
Senator Urban.
Thank you, Senator Grassley. I'll speak for myself.